Hi, this is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com, and welcome to the Palmetto State Baseball Podcast for April 20th, 2023. I operate PalmettoStateBaseball.com. It's a website covering college baseball in South Carolina. I cover all 33 teams. And on a side note, I see where Clinton College in Rock Hill is looking to add baseball at some point. That would give us 34 teams. Now, if only the folks at Furman University were listening. Listen, folks, Furman, we want baseball. Anyway, back to this podcast. I post a daily schedule of score list as well as news and other notes at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I also post a video wrap-up each Sunday night at PalmettoStateBaseball.com and on my YouTube channel. I also pick a team of the week, give state rankings for all 33 state teams, and other news and tidbits as it comes about. I also am active on Twitter at Palmetto Base. If you like my podcast and other coverage of college baseball in South Carolina, please become a follower and invite others to listen to and like the podcast too. Listener interaction helps me determine if I'm doing this just for my own fun or for somebody else. Before we get on to the weekend, how about a brief look back to earlier in the week? On Monday, USC Union extended its winning streak to 4 games with a pair of wins over the Limestone JV team. The Bantams' Trent Turner hit his 5th home run in 5 days. Also on Monday, the Erskine JV team won the Conference Carolinas Developmental Championship over Shawan down at Sparrow Stadium in Florence. On Tuesday, Wofford beat Winthrop to complete a series sweep for the season. Ryan Galaney had 4 hits, raising his season batting average to .451. He is 14 for 24, that's .583 for you math experts, over his last 5 games. Also on Tuesday, South Carolina got 2 late home runs to turn back Charleston Southern. USC third baseman Talmadge LaCroix suffered a hamstring injury, and the status is listed as day-to-day. With second baseman Will McGillis out with a broken hand and Kevin Madden no longer on the team after leaving and entering the transfer portal, the Gamecocks are getting a little bit thin on the infield. Also on Tuesday, Clemson lost to Georgia 5-4, but did get some good news. Ryan Ammons had been the Tigers' #1 starter for the first 2 weekends of the season and was expected to keep in that role, but he got sidelined with an injury. Tuesday night against Georgia, he came back on the mound to live action. He closed out the game and retired all 4 Bulldogs he faced. Hopefully that will mean better things for the Tigers once they get to the weekends in the starting rotation. Also on Tuesday, North Greenville coasted past North Georgia. University of South Carolina transfer Jalen Vasquez hit his 5th home run in the past 8 games. Newberry fell behind early and was blown out by Mount Olive in a non-conference meeting of a couple of good Division II programs. On Wednesday, Coastal Carolina hit 4 home runs to meet College of Charleston, and Presbyterian drubbed East Tennessee State. Before we head to the weekend, let's look at some of the conference races. Most of the Division I leagues are at or near the midpoint of conference play. Clemson is 6-9 in the ACC and currently 12th in the overall standings. That's the last qualifying spot for the league tournament in May. The Tigers' remaining conference series are against North Carolina State, which is 8-9, Boston College 9-9, Louisville 8-7, Virginia Tech 8-9, and North Carolina 9-7. Those are all those schools' conference records. All of 5 of those teams have been ranked nationally at some point in the season. Barring some disastrous results in the remaining non-conference games, and there's only 3 of those left, a winning record in conference play, especially against such good competition, likely would be enough for Clemson to merit some serious consideration for an at-large bid to the NCAA Tournament. After a slow start to the conference season, I know the Tiger fans will be thrilled about that. The Tigers would likely need to go 10-5 over their final 5 series, or actually they'd have to go 10-5 to finish with a winning record of 16-14. A 9-6 finish against these 5 teams would Clemson at 15-15, and that might still get them in. A trip to NC State is up next, and we'll talk about in a little while. South Carolina is 10-4 in the Southeastern Conference. That's in 4th place overall, but conference series remain against Florida, which is 11-4, a 5-10 Auburn team, a 10-5 Kentucky team, and Arkansas, which is 11-4, and then Tennessee, which is 5-10. The Gamecocks have been among the schools in consideration for a top 8 seed based on media speculation, but they've got to finish strong to remain under consideration for that. Carolina had leads in all 5 games against LSU and Vanderbilt, but wound up going 2-3 in those series. It needs to do better than that against teams it's going up against in competition for those top 8 seeds. They need to do that to get an edge in the selection process. Florida which is this weekend's opponent, and Arkansas are also in the national seed focus. And those head-to-head matchups are going to be big for Carolina if they want to remain in the national seed conversation. Coastal Carolina is on top of the Sun Belt Conference at the midway point and in the discussion for a regional host and still hopeful to be a top 8. The Chanticleers have been coming on strong. Remaining league series in the Sun Belt are against Southern Mississippi, 10-5, 10-5 Louisiana, Appalachian State at 7-7, South Alabama at 7-8, and Marshall at 4-11. Series wins the next 2 weekends, that's against Southern Miss and Louisiana, should put the Chanticleers in great position if it can avoid stumbling against the less successful league opponents. In the Big South Conference, USC Upstate lost 2 of 3 to UNC Asheville last weekend and is 9-3, now 4.5 games behind first place Campbell. Campbell's at 13-2. Upstate has 15 league games remaining, and most of the teams it's contending with have 12. The Spartans face Radford, which is 0-12, Presbyterian at 7-8, a 10-5 Gardner-Webb team, and a 9-6 Charleston Southern team, before closing out with a home series against Campbell. If they're both 1-2 in the conference by then, it should be a great series. Charleston Southern may have too many other teams to climb to get back in the title picture. They've won their last 5 Big South games, and they're 9-6 now, and their remaining series are against Longwood, High Point, USC Upstate, and Gardner-Webb. In the Colonial Athletic Association, Charleston Southern is 12-6 and one of 4 teams tightly bunched at the top. Fortunately for the Cougars, they meet the other 3 teams head-to-head and could decide their own fate. Their series are with Elon, which is 12-5, North Carolina A&T, they're not in the race right now at 6-10, UNC Wilmington at 10-4, and Northeastern at 10-5. You could throw a hat over those top 4 teams. In the Southern Conference, Wofford is 6-3 and tied for second place with Mercer, 1 game behind Samford, which is at 7-2. The Terriers also can control their destiny. They play host to Samford this weekend, followed by UNC Greensboro at 5-7, Mercer, which is like Wofford, 6-3, and the Citadel at 3-6. Like the Samford series, the Mercer series will be in Spartanburg, so that should be good for the Terriers. On to Division II, North Greenville has clinched the Conference of Carolina's regular season title and top seed for the tournament. Got 2 weeks of league play remaining for most teams, but the Crusaders have a bye this weekend. Their final league series is at Southern Western in a week hence. In the South Atlantic Conference, Newberry has a 1.5 game lead over Lenore-Ryan and Wingate, and a 2-game lead over Catawba and Carson Newman. Newberry 16-4, Lenore-Ryan and Wingate are 15-6. Catawba and Carson Newman are 14-6. This weekend, the final weekend of South Atlantic Conference play, Newberry's at Lenore-Ryan. Wingate plays host to a 4-17 Virginia Wise team. Catawba is at a 10-11 Limestone team, and Carson Newman visits Coker, which is 6-15. I'd be afraid to guess who's going to come out on top on that. I think there's a lot of possibilities. In the Peach Belt Conference, USC Aiken at 18-6 is now a game and a half behind Young Harris, which is 21-6. But they're 2 games ahead. The Pacers are 2 games ahead of third place Georgia Southwestern. Young Harris has just one league series remaining against Lander, while USC Aiken has Georgia College this weekend. Then they're meeting Lander. In Junior College Region 10, Florence-Darlington Tech went 2-2 against USC Union last weekend. They're still 17-2 in the region, but their lead over Gaston College is down to 1.5 games. Gaston College has a 15-3 record. And guess who meets head-to-head this weekend in Florence? That's right, FD Tech and Gaston College. The Stingers will need to go 3-1, or at least split the series or better, to be assured of getting the region regular season title and top seed for the tournament in May. If there was some rain-out action, like in the Stingers finished 2-1 series win, or even go 1-2, they would still get it. But basically, they just need to split the series or better to win the regular season championship. On to this weekend. By the way, it looks like it could be rainy again on Saturday. That may be great for the water table, but not so good for baseball. The Florida-South Carolina series begins on Thursday with Game 1 on ESPNU at 7:30. It's one of 2 Thursday games involving a state team. South Carolina is 6th in 5 of the 6 major national polls. Florida is 3rd in most polls, but 2nd in a couple. Carolina leads the nation with 88 home runs, while Florida is 3rd with 82. Individually, Gators two-way star Jack Caglianone, and I apologize if I mispronounced his name, has a nation's best 22 homers, and USC's Ethan Petrie is third with 18. Depending on which way the wind is blowing at Founders Park, you may want to park the car at the far end of the parking lot. Gamecock starter Noah Hall will again miss the weekend with back issues, so Will Sanders and Jack Mahoney are scheduled to pitch the first 2 games for Carolina, with the Game 3 starter dependent on who gets used in the first 2 games. Matthew Becker, James Hicks are some of the options, maybe Eli Jersenbeck or Eli Jones. But again, it depends on what's going on with the first 2 games. As I mentioned earlier, USC likely needs a series win against the Gators to stay in the top 8 conversation. It's going to be tough to make a argument for beating out one of these teams for a top 8 seed if you can't beat them head-to-head. The other series involving a state team on Thursday is a hastily scheduled matchup between Columbia International and Point University in West Point, Georgia. The Rams had a late cancellation they advertised about 5 or 6 days ago, scouted for an opponent, and were able to find the Skyhawks. That game, again, the series began on Thursday, and it's concluding with a Friday doubleheader. Moving on to Friday. While Clemson is playing better of late, so is NC State, and that's who the Tigers play this weekend in Raleigh. The Wolfpack had won their first 13 games, then lost 11 of their next 18. However, State's now won its last 5. In the Sun Belt, the Southern Miss Coastal Carolina game ought to be a really dandy one on the Grand Strand. I like the depth of competitive balance that the Sun Belt Conference has. There are about 6 or 7 teams that are very, very close. In the Southern Conference, as I mentioned earlier, Wofford plays host to first place Sanford with the lead on the line, and the Citadel entertains East Tennessee State. College of Charleston, which is going to face a series of important conference series later on, has a non-conference home set against Western Carolina. In NCAA Division II, the Newberry-Lenoir game I mentioned in the South Atlantic Conference may have the most direct impact on a league race, but and there's 5 teams still chasing that top seed. I mentioned Lenoir, Newberry, Catawba, Carson Newman, and Wingate. Sorry, I didn't mention Wingate here as far as who they're playing. In the Peach Belt Conference, USC Aiken needs a good result to stay in the Peach Belt Conference race. Other Peach Belt Conference games involving state teams have Claflin at Flagler, Young Harris at Lander, and USC Beaufort playing host to Columbus State. North Greenville, as I mentioned, is idle in Conference Carolinas, but Francis Marion is at Mount Olive, and Erskine is at Southern Wesleyan. Erskine's been playing well lately. They have won 4 straight. Been a nice week for the Flying Fleet. Elsewhere, Benedict's at home for a series against Spring Hill. Bluefield State is at Morris. Payne is at Voorhees. And Bob Jones is at home against Carolina University at Conisty Park in Greenville. Friday night game and a Saturday doubleheader. In Junior College Region 10, there's that big showdown between Gaston College at Florence, Darlington Tech at Daly Field in Florence. Elsewhere, USC Sumter is at USC Salkehatchie. USC Union is at USC Lancaster, and Spartanburg Methodist travels to Lewisburg. And I forgot to insert my Big South Conference games. I apologize for that. In the Big South Conference of region of NCAA Division I, all 4 state teams are at home. USC Upstate is playing Radford. Charleston Southern has Longwood. Winthrop is against UNC Asheville, and Presbyterian plays host to Gardner-Webb. For particulars on times and dates, weather changes, and the like, check PalmettoStateBaseball.com or on Twitter at Palmetto Base. This is the 13th podcast of the 2023 season. If you like this podcast and my other coverage of college baseball in South Carolina, please let me know and let other folks know so they can follow it too. Share a link with your baseball fan friends to this podcast. Let me know by an email, rudyjones at PalmettoStateBaseball.com, or comment on any post that I make or a Twitter post. Again, I'm open to criticism. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I'm active on Twitter at Palmetto Base. If you see me at a game, please come say hi. I like to know that people appreciate my work. As always, I'd like to invite anyone in the Greenville area of South Carolina to come worship with me at Reedy River Baptist Church, 871 North 25 Bypass between Travelers Rest and the Furman University Golf Course. Worship time is 10:30 on Sunday mornings, and if you're interested in other times, I can let you know that too. Our worship style is mostly traditional. Our pastor is the Reverend Josh Slatton. We have no real dress code other than just that you dress appropriately. Don't do anything indecent. as your dressing. If you live in the Columbia area, visit Woodfield Park Baptist Church at 1834 Morning Glow Lane off I-77 near Fort Jackson. My friend Jeff Phillips is pastor there, and the Sunday morning worship starts at 11 a.m. Thanks again for listening to the April 20th episode of the Palmetto State Baseball Podcast. This is Rudy Jones of Palmetto State Baseball saying, it's a beautiful day for baseball. Let's play two.